It is Monday, September 24th, and these are today's headlines. Youth voter registration surges just 6 weeks away from the midterms. Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh's second accuser of sexual assault agrees to testify in front of the Senate.
Paul Manafort pleads guilty and agrees to cooperate with Mueller investigation, and USG cuts club budgets. In congressional news, Republicans.
Welcome to a new season of On Point with Politics. I'm your host, Kimberly Keggy.
And I'm Andrew Brinker. The House race for Virginia's 2nd District is heating up as Scott Taylor, the incumbent Republican for the district, is facing accusations that his campaign illegally helped an independent candidate get on the November 6th ballot. According to the New York Times, the allegations claim that Taylor's campaign helped independent candidate Sean Brown get his name on the ballot to take votes away from the Republicans' Democratic opponent. The efforts reportedly involve stacking petitions for Brown with the names of dead people and voters outside the district. The Virginia Supreme Court has removed Brown's name from the ballot. Prior to the news of the scandal, Taylor was projected to win re-election without much opposition. However, the Washington Post reports that in light of the scandal, polls now have Taylor's main opponent, Democrat Elaine Luria, leading the race. The new data, which was produced by an internal Luria campaign poll, has Luria at 51% and Taylor at 43%, with 6% of voters still undecided. The New York Times reports that a victory for Luria in a district that was won by Republican Taylor last election by over 20 points will be key for Democrats, who must win back 23 seats to reclaim the House this election. Taylor is under investigation by the state police and faces potential criminal charges.
Voter registration is on the rise for younger Pennsylvania constituents just 6 weeks away from the midterm. According to an analysis completed by data firm TargetSmart, voter registration for Pennsylvania residents 18 to 29 years old increased just over 16 points after the Parkland school shooting on February 14th. According to the report, Pennsylvania had the largest increase in registration compared to 40 other states that had available data. According to the Post-Gazette, a quarter of registered Democrats fall under the 18 to 34 age range in Pennsylvania, compared to less than 20% of Republicans. And in other news on voter registration, Tuesday is National Voter Registration Day. Drives will be held at 35 libraries across Allegheny County as part of a partnership between the county's Library Association and the League of Women Voters of Greater Pittsburgh. The Civic Literacy Program volunteers will help register new voters, update registration, provide absentee ballot forms, and check polling places, and provide provide nonpartisan voter information. Voter registration application CAB can be submitted online or in mail in person to county voter registration offices by the October 9th deadline. The applications must be postmarked by that day, according to the Pennsylvania Department of State.
Following the Texas midterm election, Texas Senator Ted Cruz and challenger Beto O'Rourke faced off in their first of 3 debates on Friday night in the race for a highly contested Senate seat. Per Politico, the debate was filled with divisive back and forths on nearly every topic. O'Rourke targeted Cruz for being unwilling to oppose President Donald Trump, saying, quote, "We need a U.S. Senator who will stand up to this president where we must and work with him where we can," end quote. Cruz fired back, tying O'Rourke to Hillary Clinton and attacking his progressive views, saying, quote, "Those are radical views, and they're not views that are consistent with the overwhelming majority of Texans," end quote. According to CBS News, the debate is a pivotal moment in a race that is much closer than initially predicted. O'Rourke, as a Democrat, is polling remarkably close to incumbent Cruz in a historically red state. On the shoulders of the Me Too movement and the Trump presidency, O'Rourke is one of dozens of progressives looking to overtake historically red areas. Midterm elections will take place nationwide on November 6, 2018.
The Trump administration proposes new rules that could deny green cards to immigrants if they use Medicaid, food stamps, housing vouchers, and other forms of public assistance. Per the Post-Gazette, the Department of Homeland Security said Saturday that current and past recipients of certain public benefits above thresholds would be considered a heavily weighed negative factor in granting green cards. The department said, quote, "The proposal will be clearly define long-standing law to ensure that those seeking to enter and remain in the United States either temporarily or permanently can support themselves financially and will not be reliant on public benefits," end quote. The 447-page proposal does not need to be approved by Congress, but faces a 60-day public review once published in the Federal Register to come in coming weeks. Potentially disqualifying benefits include Medicare Part D prescription, drugs, Medicaid with some exceptions for emergency services and disability services related to education, food stamps, and Section 8 vouchers. Coming up after the break, we will check in with our reporters to find out what's happening around the country and in Washington.
Stay tuned.
Go. Go to our new website, uvu.plainpark.edu.
Go, 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 go.
Join UView and find your herd.
Be like, join EOP. And 3, 2, join EOP.
Grab them now, or else I can listen.
Yeah.
Join on point with politics. 3, 2, 1.
Join Pioneer Sideline.
Loneliest number that you'll ever do.
Welcome back to On Point with Politics.
Let's check in with our Supreme Court reporter, Morgan Biddle.
There was a breakthrough in negotiations late Saturday night between the Senate Judiciary Committee and lawyers for Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, who made sexual misconduct allegations against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh. According to the New York Times, Dr. Ford has tentatively agreed to testify publicly on Thursday, noting that while this is a huge breakthrough in the negotiations, several details remain to be decided, such as how many photographers and TV cameras would be in the room, and who would do the questioning. Ford requested one photographer and one TV camera only, in fear of being mobbed by the media. And as for questioning, Republicans wanted an outside lawyer, while Ford's team stated that they would prefer senators. Amidst these negotiations, President Trump took to Twitter on Friday, calling for Ford to produce official police records, tweeting, quote, "I have no doubt that if the attack on Dr. Ford was as bad as she says, charges would have been filed immediately with local law enforcement authorities by either her or her loving parents. I ask that she bring those filings forward so that we can learn date, time, and place," end quote. The Times also reports that Ford has publicly stated that she never filed charges and does not remember the exact time the event occurred. This tweet has kindled growing outrage among many women online who have been defending Dr. Ford under the hashtag #WeBelieveChristine. According to PBS, people are also drawing comparisons to when attorney Anita Hill accused Supreme Court member Clarence Thomas of sexual harassment in 1991, as demonstrators chanted, "We believe Anita Hill, we believe Dr. Blasey," outside of Committee Chairman Chuck Grassley's office on Thursday. Negotiations for the hearing are set to continue this week. Andrew and Kimberly, back to you at the desk.
Thank you, Morgan. Our reporter, Dennis McDermott, has the latest on the Mueller investigation.
Thanks, Andrew. According to CNN, Paul Manafort has pleaded guilty to one count of conspiracy against the U.S. and one count of conspiracy to obstruct justice due to attempts to tamper with witnesses. Manafort has also admitted to money laundering, bank fraud, and foreign lobbying violations, all of which have been agreed to be dropped if Manafort complies with the cooperation agreement that has been sent for him. This news comes after Manafort spent months vowing to fight for his innocence, and just weeks after Trump insisted that Manafort was a, quote, brave man, end quote, who would not make up stories to get a deal. To you at the desk.
Thank you, Dennis. And before we cut to a break, according to an interview with U.S. Secretary of State Michael Pompeo, President Donald Trump is willing to meet with Iran's President Hassan Rouhani at the UN this week. Trump will address the UN's General Assembly on Tuesday, and on Wednesday will chair a Security Council meeting where Rouhani might be in attendance. Pompeo told NBC's Meet the Press, quote, "He's happy to talk with folks anytime. The president's been pretty clear about that." End quote. Trump tweeted on Friday that his visits on the UN would focus on Iran, while the White House official said that the meeting would focus on halting the spread of nuclear weapons under any rules. Iran, which is currently a member of the Security Council, can attend a meeting if it's going to be the main subject of discussion. Iranian President Hassan Rouhani accused the U.S. of being, quote, a bully, end quote. That would create insecurity in the Islamic Republic a day after an attack on a military parade that killed 25 people, including 12 members of the country's Revolutionary Guards. When we come back, we will have an exclusive interview with USG parliamentarian Alex Popacek.
What's one word to describe CAB?
Welcoming.
Community.
Creative.
Experiences.
Family. Openness.
Pineapple.
The Campus Activities Board is a student-run organization that consists of 7 different committees. Each focuses on event planning, marketing, and administrative activities. Join us in organizing the juiciest events on campus, from late-night bingo to festive dances to our team bonding meetings. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Point Park Cap, or like us on Facebook at Campus Activities Board at Point Park University.
Good evening and welcome to Newsnight. I'm Josh Troop alongside Jess Paterchak.
Defending his decision to kick out 15 Cuban diplomats from the United States.
Thanks, Allison. Fitness on Demand has returned to Point Park.
Residents fear that Mount Agung will have a repeat of 1963's eruption.
2-star NFL quarterbacks made the headlines this week after wrapping up.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this evening. That's your news tonight. For Nick Tomarello, I'm Alex Grubbs. Have a great night.
In United Student Government news, budgets were approved for almost 30 different student-run clubs and organizations by USG last Monday. The Globe reports that several student organizations were dissatisfied with the funding they received, citing USG's recent policy change for funding student organizations. USG Treasurer Courtney Lampel said of the policy change, quote, "It just didn't make sense for us to supply thousands of dollars into fundraisers," end quote. Several organizations, including the Black Student Union and the Strong Women, Strong Girls, received less funding than they had requested. The Black Student Union was particularly frustrated as they were planning many of the same events they did last year, now with a smaller budget. Black Student Union Vice President Prim Green said, quote, "I get the rules and things, but there's no explanation for why I get a higher amount last year versus this year, because it's the exact same thing," end quote. The United Student Government meets every Monday at 3:15.
We have United Student Government parliamentarian Alex Popacek with us this evening. Thanks for joining us, Alex. Due to the nature of the clubs, would this legislation prioritize one club over another?
So what is going on is we as a student body, or rather a student government, have adopted what we call funding priorities. And what we're prioritizing is the things actually funded. So food and things of that nature are lower on a priority list, whereas something to completely necessary for the club's functioning is higher up on the list. And by prioritizing what clubs are asking for, it's one of those things where whether it's up to the clubs as to whether or not to request things toward their mission as a club, or if it's something a little bit less so. And so that's what all this means. It's not necessarily prioritizing clubs, but it's prioritizing what they're asking and what's being funded.
Okay, now would you say that's what USG is hoping to gain out of this, is having the clubs prioritize what they actually need in a substantial resources versus a food resource for a party?
Absolutely. We only have so much funding overall to give student organizations, and in an effort to make sure every student organization is able to meet what they're trying to do as their goal mission, that's why these funding priorities were put in place, so we're able to make sure all of our 50-something clubs on campus are able to continue to do their missions. And by prioritizing, what they're asking for and what gets funded, we work through that process and through the appeals process as well.
Now, I understand that this was President Kern's initiative. Why was this not done by recent or previous administration?
So one of the things behind this is the way it's written in our Constitution. Senators can decide to fund whatever they want, and what we've found over the past several years that I've been on campus, is that we had it was inconsistent as to what would be funded if you were at the beginning of the alphabet versus at the end of the alphabet, or what day was it, and those kinds of things. So the idea behind this was to kind of standardize the process in a way that made sense for everybody involved, and the clubs were made aware of this before they even opened it up to request funding.
Well, thank you, Alex. I'd like to thank you again for being here with us this evening. Well, thank you for tuning in to On Point with Politics. I'm Kimberly Kege.
And I'm Andrew Brinker. We hope you stay on point with politics.